Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Popcorn Bucket List, the podcast that keeps your movie bucket list up to date because those 1,000 movies to see before you die lists are just too daunting. And tonight, we have the fight of the century. In one corner, we have Darrell, and with him, King Kong. And the other corner is Sarah, with her is Godzilla. And I'm your host and resident monster referee, Gracie. So tonight, let's get ready to rumble. So tonight, we are asking the age-old question, who wins, our monkey with a blonde fetish, King Kong, or the dummy thick lizard, Godzilla? We're going to pit them through time, OG Godzilla versus OG King Kong, all the way to the recently premiered Godzilla versus King Kong versus the 1963 version of King Kong versus Godzilla, which is a big difference there.
62.
Yes. So we're going to start off with the OGs. We have to start off with the classics. We've got King Kong in 1933 and Godzilla in 1954. So who wants to go first? Talk about the films.
I guess I'll go first on King Kong. So I watched for the first time pretty much yesterday, and it was really interesting. Okay, first of all, it was a little less racist than I thought it was going to be, so that's always nice. That's always a good thing. Whenever I watch any movie that's pre 1980, I'm always like, let's see what's going to happen here. But yeah, this one was really fun to watch. The animation was really interesting, the stop motion to bring Kong to life and all the various monsters. It was kind of cool to see, like it was interesting to see because I watched that one after I watched the newer version of King Kong by Peter Jackson. So it was interesting looking at the parallels. Also, fun fact is that King Kong's size changes a lot. You'll notice throughout the movies he changes size constantly, like from this movie to the next movie, but also in this own movie, he's like from 19 feet to like 50 feet. So that's always an interesting thing, just watching how like he's like a 3 people tall in one scene, and then when he's in the United States, he's like half a building tall or something like that. It's funny how that changes. But yeah, it was a really fun movie. There wasn't any blackface that I saw. There were actual black people, and I was like, okay, cool. This is still a little racist because this is not how black people are, but at least there wasn't blackface, unlike some of the other movies on this list that we will get to later.
Yeah.
It was also surprisingly violent. I didn't expect it to be as violent. Apparently, in the re-releases, they added a lot of new footage that was taken out because of the Hays Code. There was like people getting crushed by King Kong, eaten by King Kong, eaten by other things. People get picked up out of windows, just dropped. You see bodies fall into like a big ravine. It was shocking violence, but very entertaining. So yeah, overall it was really, really good.
For our listeners who might not be as advanced with history with cinema, the Hays Code was basically a rating system before there was a rating system. It was a list of rules that banned certain things in filmmaking, like interracial couples and lustful kissing or drugs and alcohol. Like you couldn't see the main character drink alcohol or do drugs, and a lot of it the code was a interesting way to get from there to our rating system that we have today. But this was, I mean, let's be honest, it was probably coming from the Vatican itself. I mean, it all stems in Catholicism of what isn't and is okay to show people and to promote. So it does exist in a certain historical value of King Kong being released in the Hays Code. So
I didn't know anything about that. So
it's a thesis I wrote.
And we just got to the thesis portion again.
There you go. You want me to talk about the rating system's historical value? I can. But I probably could do a better, but I had to refresh my memory on it. So, yeah. So, all right. So, what would you give on a scale of, let's do 1 to 10, what would you give King Kong 1933?
Let's see. As a movie, I would definitely I'd probably give it an 8, a solid 8, because it's a very well-made film for its time. It's very entertaining. If I can put myself back in the time period, I can see how, like, wow, this probably was really, really cool to people. This was really amazing. Especially with like the groundbreaking stop motion animation. Like, one of my favorite little fun facts about it was that when they were trying to animate Kong, the hardest part to fix was every time they had to touch the model, they would mess up his hair a little bit. And so the animators never really happy about that, because like, man, we keep getting the hair messed up. But people today have kind of embraced that, because it's like, no, that means that, like, it was definitely handmade. People think it's super cool. So I don't know, I love that. And I could see how that would have been really, really impressive to people back in 1933.
And stepping in for me in Godzilla's corner is Gracie. Let's talk about Godzilla 1954.
I'm throwing Sarah under the bus. She hasn't seen Godzilla. I don't know how she's in Godzilla's corner and not seeing his origin story, but I digress. We don't shame here, but we strongly, I don't even know what to say. We wag our fingers at you. We're an audio process. Okay, so I saw Godzilla 1954 version actually for the first time like a month or two ago. I think it was when the second trailer for King Kong, Godzilla versus King Kong came out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Godzilla. I was like, let's watch this. Because I had never seen the original. I've seen a lot of like different iterations of Godzilla, and I'm sure I've seen the original. I just don't remember it as an adult. So I was really excited to revisit that. And I was surprised at how compelling it was of a story. They really capture the audience in its way of set design. And I mean, even just watching him move around, he was super cool to watch. I mean, 1954, and we've already gotten King Kong, which is like a stop motion thing. This is a guy in a suit, and it's beautiful. It's so much fun to watch. And going from that and watching some other iterations for this podcast, it's actually a letdown to like see it kind of fall apart a little bit. I don't know. It was in the ocean for some shots. They electrocute him. And then there's this like huge parallel with the war, because it's all about radiation and, America dropping the bomb on them. And that's what woke Godzilla. Like, it's super like heart-wrenching in a weird way. Like, you're really feeling for them. And I've always had like a weird complex where I hate that every monster movie, the humans just want to kill the monster. They never want to at least study it. Like, in my mind, I'm like, we could learn so much, and I'm probably one of the woeful scientists or something like that. But that really like explains the plight. Like, I felt this guy's pain when he's watching them kill, Godzilla. And it just, I don't know, it was a fun one to watch. It also had some really cool characters. Like, I mean, it had, the evil scientist who learns how to kill all the fish and, with one zap of like a pill. Like, it was interesting. It was also cool to watch it because I watched it with Darrell. And then Ross ended up watching it. My husband, he ended up watching it with us, and he watched the whole thing, which I was surprised, because a lot of the times it was black and white, and it was in Japanese, not in English. And so he had to read the subtitles, and that normally is a deterrent for him, but he surprisingly like paid attention through the whole film. I was really surprised at how long we had his you know, attention. But I don't know. Darrell, what did you think about it? I know you were watching it for the first time as well with me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really fun. It was interesting to see, like you said about like him being a guy in a suit. It's just so funny and just interesting watching someone move around and do stuff with all these little miniatures, and then them cutting back to like, oh, here's like the actual set of, like Godzilla picks up a train full of people, and it's like it's just a little toy train in his hand, but you cut the people like, oh my god, I'm in a train, oh my god,
Yeah,
just like it's really interesting to just kind of step back and see how, like, on one hand it's very simple because it's kind of the first time anyone did that kind of stuff, but also like how complicated it is and how much artistry has to go into making that look believable, and it never felt like fake or phony. um I think like one of the interesting things is that since it was in black and white, just like King Kong, one thing I've noticed about like these kinds of monster movies is that once you start adding color, it makes it a little harder to believe the story. um it's kind of like my biggest problem with like Pacific Rim Uprising was that they added a lot of color to that particular movie, and it looks weird, I guess. I don't know. I don't but when it's in black and white, like Godzilla or the original King Kong, it's just like it feels more visceral. It feels more kind of grungy and dirty, and like here's a video of something that actually happened. So yeah, it was fun, and the human story in it was actually super interesting and super compelling, unlike other entries on these lists, let's just
Oh my
say.
gosh. I will agree with you on that one. I just read this really cool fact. The script is only 50 pages long and it
Really?
was written in 11 days.
Ah, man.
Can you
Wow.
imagine taking only 11 days out of your life to create something that is literally like stands through time? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows who Godzilla is, whether you've seen any of the movies or not. You know that he's a giant lizard who breathes fire and yells. And, you know, I don't know. I just think that's really cool to think about because, like, I mean, I've spent months and years on scripts that have never seen the light of day.
Yeah, then this guy, the
And then
nerve
this
of him.
guy.
11 days. How dare you?
Ugh, heartbreaking. But who would we think, okay, what would you give it in a out of 10?
Out of 10, I'd also throw like an 8 at it, just again for how well the movie is put together and how entertaining and interesting it is.
I would give
Despite
it a
having
10
to
as
tell,
well. I mean, an
I
8
mean,
as well.
like despite having to tell us, it's so weird having to pit like a giant monster and then like this little human story, and the human story actually be interesting. So I mean, they did a really good job. So yeah, I'd say that they're kind of even in terms of the movie uh rating department. uh but I guess I wonder who would win the fight, though. I guess that's the real question.
Really, if you think about it, okay, so Godzilla is pretty big in that one. I think he is consistently like 50 feet tall on
Yeah,
that.
he is massive.
King Kong, with his fluctuating sizes of being either 20 feet or 50 feet, I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
if that
to
happens
me,
throughout the fight, I don't know if
I
that
feel like Godzilla
works.
takes this one because, like,
Yeah,
as much as King Kong is destructive, I think Godzilla gives no fucks.
yeah.
You know, like King Kong is just looking for his girl, you know, like
Hmm.
he is just trying to find his girl in the city of a billion girls that look like her. And and he's he's just trying to get to the top of the Empire State Building, right? Is it the Empire State Building or is it the Chrysler Building?
It is the Empire State
Okay,
Building.
I couldn't remember which one that is. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna have to give it to Godzilla. I feel like Godzilla would just breathe fire on him, or maybe King Kong goes up onto a building and he's like, "Ah," and then Godzilla is just like blows
Yeah,
fire out at the building and burns him. I don't know. That's my call. Sarah,
yeah.
you're the ref for this one. Who do you think?
Yeah, well, I might be a little biased, but I will have to vote for Fire Breath. I think that could take that monkey out.
Pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
probably.
I mean,
At least that version
apparently
of
King
him.
Kong has shape-shifting abilities and,
Yeah, so that it might play to his advantage. I mean, he could just
but
get really tiny.
from the
It'll-
sounds of it, I think Godzilla's going to take him out in that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we've decided that Godzilla, the OG, is the winner of that round. It's okay, King Kong. You started us off strong. You couldn't finish the fight, and that's okay. Our next round off, no, that's not the right word. Our next round is the 2005 King Kong, directed by Peter Jackson, starring Adrian Brody and Jack Black and Naomi Watts as well, versus the 1998 Roland Emmerich film Godzilla, starring Matthew Broderick and Jean Reno. So, did I say that right, or is it Jean
I
Reno?
think it's Jean Reno.
Let me just jump off a bridge. It's Jean
Okay.
Reno, especially because that was probably the reason I gave it the rating it got.
It's okay.
So.
He doesn't show up in movies anymore. It doesn't matter.
I don't care. So good. Alrighty. Who is taking King Kong?
I will take King Kong as always. Stick with my boy.
All right. Tell us about King Kong and your experience watching King Kong, because I know this was your first time.
Okay. Yeah, so I just realized I watched all these movies. I watched all the King Kong movies in reverse order. So I watched the most recent one first and the oldest one last. So it's funny going back in time like this. Anyway, so the King Kong version by Peter Jackson is basically identical in terms of story overall to the 1933 version. The only difference is that it is a heck of a lot longer. It is the extended version, 3 hours and 20 minutes. So it is a beefy film, but otherwise, the story is pretty much the same. It's still about basically a movie director saying, "I want to go to an island and film this movie. Let's go find a girl. I found a girl. Let's go to the island now." Get to the island, big monkey. They capture the big monkey. They come back to the United States, put the big monkey on the show. He's like, "I don't like being here. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna steal a girl and go climb up a building," and then he dies. The end. So that's King Kong in a nutshell, and both movies are basically the same. Um, Now in this version of King Kong, Kong is 25 feet tall consistently. He does not have a fluctuating shape shifting power like he does in the previous version. Um, and remember when I mentioned blackface earlier and how the first one surprisingly didn't have that? This one kind of does. And I know they keep harping on this, but I just find it so interesting.
Like,
Yeah,
as
to be
you're our
fair,
resident,
yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to represent the culture here, so I have to
yes.
mention it. But now I'm gonna, to be fair, and I can't believe I'm saying to be fair about blackface, but there's one time where they show it where it's a little bit justified near the end of the film, when King Kong is being shown on display. They have some actors playing the savages, and like they're in blackface, which makes sense because it's 1933, and it's like that's exactly what they would have done in 1933. So that's fine. The other thing though was that this isn't exactly blackface, but they keep the dark skinned savages trope when they arrive on the island, which I'm not a big fan of for obvious reasons. It's not quite as bad as actual like straight up blackface. That one I still kind of like, you fell into the trope, Peter Jackson. You gave us Middle Earth and then you did this. And I know the idea is that they're basically supposed to be like orcs effectively, but it's like those are human beings though, so it doesn't work when their skin is almost like completely black. So
There's no sympathy in the film
yeah, there's
for
none.
the tribe, I guess, is what it's like. They treat them as plot point,
Exactly. So
not an invasion, like they're invading their land.
Yeah, they're coming to their land, stealing their monkey.
Their god.
Their actual god. And it's like, again, it's just kind of disrespectful in my opinion. But pushing all that whole bit of baggage to the side, I really like the movie. It's very well made, especially for one that's super freaking long. And the reason why is, well, two things. One is that Jack Black does an awesome job of playing like kind of like a conniving but likable character.
He studied Orson Welles for that
Oh,
character.
did he?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
that
He
makes
said
makes
he
sense.
didn't study mannerisms, but he studied the way he was reckless.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly how he
totally
is.
comes out like that. Like, it's my favorite performance from Jack Black. I am in love with that performance. I think he's just
Yeah.
brilliant, and just I get chills every time I start talking about it, because I hear him saying the lines like, "Let's do it for him. Let's do it for whoever
Yeah,
who
donate
died
the
for his
proceeds to his wife and
kids."
children.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, to me, it's just it captures the essence of early cinema really
It
well.
does. It does. Like, his performance is just really well done, really intentional and thoughtful. And I love how he plays Carl Driscoll, the movie director. It's wonderful. Evan, the rest of the cast is also great too, but it's like,
No, Carl Denham, by the way.
Oh, Carl Denham, is that
Mhm.
did I say Driscoll?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Driscoll's
Jack
the
Driscoll
Adrian.
is Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
He's the writer. In the original film, Jack Driscoll was actually the like the boat captain,
Yeah.
but they had to create a separate character in King Kong 2005 for some reason. Not sure why. Point is, the cast is great. Jack Black is the best, but also King Kong himself is super entertaining because he's like super emotive. He actually feels like a genuine character, and he does as well in the 1933 version, but he's more of a monster. He's more of like, look at him, he's scary, everybody run away from him. This one is like, no, he's like, he's just, a big gorilla who's just like, I'm alone here, I'm gonna take this girl, she seems nice, I guess, I'm gonna like run around the forest with her in my hand and somehow not give her whiplash or accidentally kill her. I don't know how he does it.
He's
It's
a very
hilarious.
gentle giant.
Somehow the way he runs is not gentle. but she survived.
Yeah. I always like to every time I watch that version of King Kong, I'm always like brought back to like watching it with my dad. Shout out to my dad, who's like, one of our OG listeners. But he always says that it's a love story about the guy who doesn't get the girl in the end.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly what it is.
That's what it is. And it's heart-wrenching when you think about it, because it really is. All he wants to do is he just wants his girl. And he just wants to protect her. And though it's got some really heartbreaking scenes too, just like when they learn to communicate with each other, and she's doing all these like jokes and stuff like that, and she yells at him when he goes too far. It's like, you're like, oh, don't yell at him, like, poor baby.
Yeah, he doesn't understand, leave him alone. But also, yeah, he could kill you very quickly if he wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. that film is, I love watching that film because it has so many different structures. It has like the making of the film on the boat, then you have your islands, and like the rescue the girl and the damsel in distress, and all these like dinosaurs, and like there's this great fight between I believe it's a T-Rex. Is it a T-Rex or a raptor?
There's raptors fighting and like trying to eat the brontosaurus.
Yes.
Then there's a T-Rex, the three T-Rexes fighting Kong later on.
Yeah. And but the fight scene with the T-Rex where he just like breaks his jaw open and then like goes like, oh, he's broken.
And like he does that in the original film too. He does the exact same thing. He breaks the jaw, then he plays with it. And I was like, Peter Jackson, you did it again. Look at that.
I think they reference it in Skull Island as well to
Do
talk
they?
about. I think so. I don't remember if it was No, maybe it was the most recent one because I remember turning to you and going, "Oh my God, that's the thing. He did the thing."
Oh, I think he's trying to. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get to it. We'll get
yeah.
to it.
So it's obviously like a trope in King Kong lore that I maybe just never picked up
Yeah, I
on.
guess go for the mouth. Just try to yank it open.
Yeah.
But overall, love the film. And yeah, I agree with you. It's really sad because it's like you kind of realize that as soon as he gets taken away, he has no chance of surviving because there's nothing he can do in New York. It's like he can't go anywhere. He doesn't have enough. There's no food source for him. Like even if he escaped out of New York, it's like there's no way he can survive. I mean, it's actually like really sad to think about. Like they literally took this god and was like, no, we're putting you in a cage. Now you'll suffer and die.
And it's
So
heartbreaking to watch the scene where they like make him a sideshow kind of thing. Like
yeah.
it's like, and they like raise his arms and the chains, and like I'm like, oh, this poor baby man. And I don't know. I've always feel for King Kong. I'm always on his side. I have never been on the human side in any King Kong movie. So, and I think I will always be like that. I think it's like you came onto his land, his property. All he did was just say, hey, don't fly helicopters here. Leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone. Let me take my showers and let me watch the sunset. Like, no worries. That's all he wants.
Yeah.
Sarah,
I mean, pick
do
from.
you like that version of King Kong?
I did like it. It's funny that you mentioned that you watched it with your dad because I watched it with my parents. Like right after it came out, my mom used to get well, actually, she still does get the DVDs through Netflix, and
Oh,
so
throwback.
Oh.
uh, they put that on, and they bowed out about an hour in. They both went to bed, and I stayed up and watched that whole movie.
It's a slow beginning. I will give them that. It's
Yeah,
a really
yeah.
slow beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes like almost 30 to 45 minutes to get the name Skull Island, I'm pretty sure, because that's like a
Hmm.
big reveal of him typing skull. And,
Yeah,
like,
it takes a while.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't blame your parents for bowing out.
But
Oh,
yeah, it's a good one. It's not up there, but I enjoyed it.
oh, and Andy Serkis. I mean, we're not talking about Andy
Oh yeah,
Serkis's
Andy
performance.
Serkis not
Mm.
only as like a live action character, but also as
Yeah,
Kong. Like
he's like he's a beautiful actor to watch, and I will forever stand on the pedestal that I think he deserved so many nominations and Academy Awards.
yeah.
Not just like, hey, here's a special shout out to you. I think
No, best
even
actor.
not for King Kong, if you don't want to give him for King Kong, give him for another monkey, give him for Caesar, for
Yeah, he's got
uh,
monkeys galore. Just pick one.
Planet of the Apes. Like, I just think he is a phenomenal actor, and just because he's a character actor, people sideline him. And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of heartbreaking to watch as someone who truly appreciates character actors. Like, and he appreciates the craft of it. And I mean, who else could go from playing an angry cook who gets his arm eaten by some angry bug thing to being the monkey, which is the star of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I like that one. That's probably, yeah. I would say that's my favorite of this iteration of these list of films that we're talking about right now.
Mm.
But it might just be because it's, something I've grown up with. I don't know. I also played the video game, which we don't need to talk about it. All right.
Hmm.
Next,
Yeah, speaking of not good movies,
not good movies.
Godzilla 1998, Matthew Broderick.
Ooh, this film. Sarah, can you tell me
Mm.
about this film?
I can tell you that it's a rough ride with some really, really bad CGI and some of the worst movie tropes of all time just packed into it. Yeah, it's a 90s movie, that's for sure. And I know that, Godzilla CGI 1998 walked so that good CGI can run now, but
That Spy Kids 3 could happen, of
yes.
course.
Oh, I have so many issues with this Godzilla. Like I have like a long list of like all the just like big issues I had with this film.
Oh,
And
please chime in.
oh my gosh, number one, it's not a Godzilla. It's a freaking T-Rex. I wore my T-Rex shirt in honor of that film because it wasn't Godzilla. It never looked like Godzilla. And it was literally a T-Rex. And I was like, you didn't invent a new creature. That's just a T-Rex and tiny little T-Rexes. And then the whole thing is it's basically, what if Jurassic Park took place in New York City?
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It has the same reproduction, like, idea. They're like, oh, life finds a way, through asexual reproduction. I'm like, so we just accept that he's born pregnant? Like, where did that come from? Like,
there's even like raptor-esque scenes with like the baby Godzillas and stuff. Like it is so a terrible remake of Jurassic Park movie. Like,
and it's not even a Godzilla movie. Like, it doesn't feel like a Godzilla movie. Like, I told Darrell the last time, like, for some of them, when I go to see a monster movie, I'm going to see a specific type of movie, and if you miss the mark, you miss the mark, and that's fine. And normally it's people taking themselves too seriously, and maybe that's what was wrong with this, because I like Roland Emmerich. Like, I love him as a director. I think he's great in some of his disaster films, but mark was missed for this. This was not a Godzilla film. This was if a T-Rex came to King Kong, and don't even get me started about like the one Asian man in the entire film.
Oh, yes. Who has one thing, you have one word to say, you know what it is. Gojira. That's all you get. You get that.
I gave this a 1 on my Letterboxd rating. I'm not gonna lie to you. I gave it a 1, and it was because of Jean Reno. That's it. That's the only reason I liked the film, is because I like watching him as an actor. I think he is brilliant, and I thought he was great fun, and I loved all the coffee jokes, and that was it. Everything else, I could have just not seen it, and I would have been okay.
They also threw in like every disaster movie trope that they could. Like, there's this guy sitting in a car, he's got like headphones on, and he can't hear Godzilla coming, even though his entire car is shaking.
Or the fisherman who brings in Godzilla.
Yes, like
his thing wasn't out that
cheesy.
far. Where did
It's so cheesy and so bad, and they're like trying to be funny with it. Like, if you look at the TVs in the office, like Barney's on and like things like that. Like,
and then you don't even get me started on the sexist tropes that they used in this.
That's the whole movie.
She was a horrible damsel in distress. Like, I think they were trying to make her not a damsel in distress, and it was just like, no, she's literally the flattest character you could ever write.
Yeah.
Hank Azaria's character is 10 times better, and he doesn't even say a whole hell of a lot.
I will defend the movie in like one regard, is that it's interesting because it's Roland Emmerich. It's kind of cool seeing some of the practical like destruction effects. Like, I like the pier scene just because it's cool to see like a guy actually running along this pier. But other than that, it's like I gave it like a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I was like, it's just boring to me. That's it. Other than that, it has like a couple of cool practical effects, and it has like the supporting cast, The Simpsons, basically. And it's like, sure, fine. They have one character who's like a stand-in for Roger Ebert, because which is so funny, because it's like, well, this movie was bad though, man. You didn't put him in a good movie. That's the funny thing. Like, that's unfortunate. But
3 is too high.
Yeah.
I don't think we need the referee, but if you want to call it, Grace, I think Godzilla's on the ground beating his hand against the mat.
And another thing, okay? Okay? The T-Rex can't swim underwater. That's not how T-Rexes work. So how is he a sea monster? Like, how is he swimming?
Seen those thick legs? That's how he swims.
No, and like in some scenes he has little arms, and then in other scenes he has long arms, and I'm like, this animal doesn't make any sense and has no water dynamics. Like, no, how did he get from wherever in the middle of nowhere to
like
New
that.
York? And
See,
also,
I like that version of Godzilla just walks underwater. As far as
he's just like, hello.
Real
And
slow.
the other, I wrote depression at the bottom of it because they kill all the babies, and I was really sad. I was like, why?
No, wait, one survives, remember?
One
Because
survived.
of the sequel bait.
Yeah,
the bait. Not really post credits, but definitely post credit scene.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm like, yeah, I would be pissed off too if you killed off. If I somehow, as a male, decide I'm gonna reproduce my 300,000 little baby eggs, and you
lots of baby
shoot them, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, you nuke the babies. Don't nuke the baby.
Yeah.
That's the answer here. That should be the review.
I really think that they just went, let's blow up Madison Square Garden.
Oh, he wanted
and how
to
do we
get so
get there?
Badly.
Like that, like it's like, how do we get to blowing up Madison Square Garden? And that's it. Because that's all it felt like.
Hank Azaria later says, they blew up the garden. Now I'm pissed. And it's like, yeah, they wanted to do that so badly.
And it's so cheesy. The New York like accents are awful. And like the girlfriend of Hank Azaria, I just am like, no, like I can't with this. And then just like the jokes of them in the cab arguing over which route to take. I'm like we get it. It's in New York.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding us.
Yes. I can't with this film. I will say King Kong wins this, and that's just because I think King Kong would whoop this Godzilla's ass. But I also just think that like it there's no competition with the Peter Jackson film. Like it stands on its own genre almost, because it's not even a monster movie. I think it's on its own level of drama and monster film. So that's my vote as the host. If you disagree, tell us about it on Twitter. The next round is the 2014 Godzilla versus, I dropped my notebook, so there goes all my notes, versus the 2017 version of King Kong from Kong Skull Island. Who wants to go first? We want to talk about Godzilla?
All right, yeah. So this Godzilla movie is just one of those movies where it's like a whole bunch of weird science jargon and like a very complicated plot with a bunch of all right characters, but when the monster comes out, I was just excited as hell. Like it's one of those movies where it's like okay for most of it, and then like you finally get to the monster part and it's like so epic and so much fun and kind of makes it worth watching. I thought it was a fun ride, and I really enjoyed a lot of the effects. I thought Godzilla was really portrayed as a badass in this movie, and it was definitely refreshing after his last iteration, and I think it was probably tied a little more closely to the original because it's supposed to be like the same Godzilla from 1954 that they've like brought back, and I thought that was like a fun little nod, and I think he like took a lot of inspiration from the original movie as well.
Yeah, Gareth Edwards, the director, has mentioned that they kept that Godzilla as their inspiration and their source of a lot of the lore. Even if you look at like the Godzilla like costume in the original, and then how he looks, the scales are very similar, and like the back spines are very similar. But Gareth Edwards said that Godzilla is a metaphor for Hiroshima in the original movie. We tried to keep that there, and there are a lot of themes from the 54 movie that we've kept. And I think you can really see that, like you feel the plight of the human, like I feel like the human story is very well tied into Godzilla's story for that. And they also you mentioned like it's like an hour of like science jargon. He tried to pull the Alien and Jaws and Close Encounters approach of
Oh, okay.
anticipation. Like we haven't seen the monster yet. We haven't seen the monster yet. And like a lot of the movies I watched, I was like, okay, we're an hour in and we haven't even met the monster yet. Like Peter Jackson's King Kong, you make it, I think, an hour and a half in before you
Yeah,
probably
it's a
see the
long,
monster.
long time. And
You
that's a
know,
longer movie.
yeah, it's a longer movie. But even some of the other iterations, I think I counted to like 40 minutes before we see, King Kong in one iteration and, 30 minutes to another. Now, this one, I felt like it wasn't as laborious for me. Like, I didn't find it like I was excited about the build up. Like to me, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see Godzilla. Like that's what I'm here for. That's why I paid my $15 for my movie ticket, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think personally, I think it does its job as a Godzilla movie. It's a good setup for the next one, I think. And I think it's kind of cool because he's a little baby. He doesn't know his powers yet. Like the second one, which I don't think we're going to talk about today, the King of Monsters, where he becomes like supercharged Godzilla. Like
Mhm.
I think that like is his evolution state, and so the first one, 2014, is kind of nice because he's like, I'm just here to destroy San Francisco. Like but I also like the plight of the humans of that one. I felt like it really captured the disaster film side of it, like him running through the airport scenes, trying to rescue a kid, that kind of thing. I felt like it really captured like a hurricane, disaster relief scenario. Like I felt like it really captured that kind of side. So, Sarah, do you have a fly in front of you?
Yeah. Sorry.
I was like, are you waving away my opinion?
No. No, I always have a fly that comes and visits me when we record. So
It does happen often.
Ooh, we should cover The Fly one day.
We should. I do like
Okay.
that movie.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this film, Sarah?
I would give it a solid 7. Like I had a lot of fun watching it. I really like it. It made me feel excited. Like seeing the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park gets me excited. And yeah, I agree with it. Like, following a lot of good disaster movies and like having that feeling in it. So
I'm gonna say 6, and I think it's because the actual plot of it is very forgettable.
Plot.
Yeah, like there really isn't. Like I didn't remember who the actors were. Like we were reading through it, and I was like, oh my god, Elizabeth Olsen. Like like that's so relevant right now.
It's not called any of their names. It's called Godzilla. Because I don't remember any of their names.
Yeah, and like Bryan Cranston's in it, and what is it?
For 5 seconds.
Aaron
Taylor
Johnson. Yeah, who I only know from Kick-Ass, and Darrell had to remind me he was in an Avengers movie, and I kind of forgot. With Elizabeth Olsen.
Yep, brother and sister in that one. So real weird in this.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with 6, and I think it's because I think I knock it because I feel like the plot is super forgettable. Like I don't know. To me, there's an expectation for monster movies, and while that fits the monster movie bill, there is a lack of maybe cheesiness.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think that's the big problem with that particular.
Took itself seriously.
Yeah, it takes itself way too seriously. So like that's the biggest problem with the new Godzilla movies is that they're kind of like that sometimes, and it's like, come on, man, just be cool. Like I don't need all like just keep it simple.
Yeah. Whereas like the second one, they were like, let's throw every monster in the books at them. Like, what is it? They throw Mothra,
Ghidorah, and Kong, and then they hint at a billion other monsters as well.
And what's the other? Is it Ghidorah, right?
Yeah, Ghidorah. Ghidorah's the three-headed dragon.
The three-headed dragon. Yeah. I'm like, one, Mothra could have been in its own movie. Don't get me started about Mothra.
I love Mothra.
Mothra is bae and will always be bae.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like, yeah, that
the
movie's
second one
not
was
great,
probably,
but Mothra.
but it had Mothra on it, so
Yeah,
that's all that
it did have
matters.
Mothra, so
And I
got the best
probably liked
scenes.
that one more because it had Millie Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga. How do you say her
I
last
think
name?
so.
Farmiga?
I just call her Vera because we're on a first name basis.
Yeah. I always feel like I butcher it because I think about it too hard. So
no, this is the part in the wrestling match when Godzilla and Kong are fighting, and then Mothra just comes in and wins the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And a startling upset, Mothra shows up.
So, facing off against the 2014 Godzilla is 2017's Kong Skull Island. And I, unfortunately, have not seen this one yet. So I'm throwing it to Darrell, and I'm sure Gracie's going to chime in as well.
Yeah,
Always.
so Kong Skull Island is just an amazing movie. It is honestly one of my top monster films ever. It's just so entertaining. It gets right to the point. I love that it just show you came here for a big monkey fighting stuff. You want that? That's exactly what you're gonna get. And 2 minutes into the movie, we're gonna show you his face and his hand. So this movie is directed by Jordan Bog Roberts. It's one of those situations where he directed like a much smaller indie film, and then they said, "Hey, you want to direct King Kong?" And he's like, "Sure." And he did a marvelous job.
What a way to get a job, right?
Right? Like, what better way than to say, "Yeah, King Kong." Now he gets to do the Metal Gear Solid movie after this, which is like, and this movie feels like a video game at times, so it fits. He's the perfect director for it. But basically, this movie has nothing to do with the original version of King Kong, or really any version we've seen before. Well, the other ones were about a movie director trying to make a movie on the island, on Skull Island. This one is about John Goodman in the 1970s basically wants to go to this island and find monsters. And that's an important thing too. It takes place in the 1970s as opposed to the Godzilla film, which takes place in 2014 or whatever year.
Yeah.
This is a period piece. It takes place during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels like a Vietnam War.
I love a good Vietnam War film. Like, it's got such a specific sound and a specific color grade, and I just think that when done right, it just fits perfectly and is super believable. And I didn't question the believability of this taking place in the 70s at all. I really didn't. It was one of those films that I don't know. I guess I just didn't get to see in theaters, and I got to see it while we were studying for this podcast. And I was super excited because Darrell watched it with me, and I was like giddy. I was like having so much fun because it's what you want when you go see a monster movie. It's you're not going to see a movie that has great plot or great storytelling, but it has a good monster and good fight scenes and some gratuitous blood death scenes. Like, I think it just doesn't take itself seriously, and that's what I like about it, is that it's like, yeah, you've come here to see King Kong, like, we're gonna give it to you. And I think that's beautiful. And the cast is so diverse too. It has Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, John Goodman, Brie Larson, who is not blonde in the film. They could have made her blonde, but she's brunette. And like the whole like my woman kind of thing, that trope isn't used in the film. I don't think Kong ever really interacts with Brie Larson in the film.
Yeah, just like once.
He doesn't really interact. Yeah, he like interacts like once or twice, and it's because this iteration of Kong is a much more protector of the people, and so he only attacks in the very beginning of the film because they're disrupting the vibrations of the island or something like that. They're like
literally dropping
awakening,
like bombs into the ground.
seismic testers,
seismic charges,
charges on the ground, and which we find out later is waking up, you know, another monster on the island, and that Kong is the protector for the people on this island, who fit beautifully into the film. I think it's such a nice change to not feel like we need to come into this island and kill the natives just to take their monster away, but like it really feels like this is their god and this is their protector, and it feels so authentic in the way that he is just trying to live on his island and not have anybody disrupt that for him. And that includes the skull crawlers, thank you, which are the baddie monsters of that film, you know. And I think it's just a fun ride. Like
it's like a roller coaster of a film.
Yeah, those things are creepy.
Oh,
those, skull crawlers, because they do show up in the new one. So I did see those guys. They're freaky.
Yeah, they have 2 legs. For those who haven't seen it, they have 2 legs and a lizard tail.
Yeah.
So it has this like weird movement of like a lizard, but it like crawling. It's a cool aspect, and I think that's the other thing, is it feels very creative. It feels like they went into this like, let's create a new world, you know, like they have all this free space to, you know, come up with these really cool looking monsters, because Skull Island is inhabited with monsters. I mean, I like giggled about a water buffalo, like a giant water buffalo, which I'm pretty sure it was a water buffalo. I don't even know. It's like the guys with the 2 horns, and they like sit in water, but it's like gigantic.
He's literally a water buffalo because he's sitting in water.
Yeah. and I was just giggling because I would have been so excited to see that in real life. Like I would be crying. I would have been so happy. And it just feels like they didn't set boundaries for themselves. Even like Kong feels super emotional, more so than normal. And I felt like he was rough around the edges. He was still young, you know, like he wasn't fully realized in his powers. He was mourning the death of his parents, which we find out like he had parents on the island. Like it's a cool little lore. You get more of his backstory into it, and I think that is what makes it feel like someone who loved Kong made this film, and everybody felt like loved the story of Kong, and it was silly. That was the other thing.
It was able to make fun of itself, unlike the other like films in this monsterverse. It was like, let's just have fun. It's like Samuel L. Jackson wants revenge on King Kong because he just threw a tree inside most of his helicopters and killed all of his men. Let's just make that just a thing, because it's really interesting.
And like that's the driving force through the entire film, is Samuel L. Jackson wanting revenge, and he is great. And Darrell was he was making fun of me because I was predicting lines before they would happen. I don't remember what it was. John Goodman said something like, "Oh, call in the cavalry," and I went, "I am the cavalry."
And then 5 seconds later
5 seconds later, Samuel L. Jackson says, "I am the cavalry." And I was like, what? And I did it 2 other times too. I think he says like, "Die motherfucker," or something like that. And I was just really excited. I love Samuel L. Jackson in this film because it's a different, like, it feels more spiteful than he normally is in a lot of his films. Like he feels very faulted, and because a lot of the times he's angry, you know, but it's really like justifiable anger. Like this one, you're like kicked behind it.
This one is very much like Heart of Darkness. Like, I'm going crazy, and you're gonna go crazy with me now.
Yes, exactly. It did have a very like Apocalypse Now kind of vibe. Which maybe is because it was Vietnam War. I don't know.
I mean, Tom Hiddleston's character is named Conrad,
Conrad.
after Joseph Conrad. So
yeah.
I mean, it's
they knew what they were doing.
Exactly.
And
They couldn't hide it.
I felt it. And I agreed. And there wasn't really any like romance either. I didn't feel like there was like tension, but there was
Yeah.
nothing else. There was no fluff. It was, here's a movie. The only thing, and I will say this, the only thing is they start you off thinking that the soldier is the main character. And he like drives like the narrative and the trope throughout the entire film.
And then spoiler alert here for this particular movie. If you can guess where we're going with this.
Just dies. He dies halfway through the film. And I'm like, okay, yeah, as a Hitchcock film lover, I love that. But like, I'm like spending time getting to know this character, and then he becomes the driving force for them to get to the other side of the island to him. And then halfway through the film, he dies, and then you have to wait another 20 to 30 minutes for them to find out he dies, and then they have to get to his helicopter. It's just like, it felt so, there was a lot of ensemble cast to this film.
Yeah.
It felt like there was, everybody had a story. It didn't feel forced like some ensemble casts do. Like, it felt very natural, but it was still, I was very mad that he died. I'm mad. I'm still mad about it.
That's fair. It was kind of a switcheroo there. They're just like, yeah, he's gone.
Yeah. And then King Kong is just wonderful. I think he's just fun to watch in this. Like he's super not edgy, but he's like, he doesn't feel as like honed in on his, like, he feels clumsy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like, he feels like he's still trying to figure out his size and his, like where he fits in the world kind of thing. It's a coming of age story for Kong,
Yeah, it kind of is. It's like it's the feel good movie of the year. Watch him kill all these people at the beginning of it first.
So who do you think wins, 2014 Godzilla or Kong Skull Island King Kong? Now we're pitting up against two babies basically, okay? Kong in Skull Island is just learning his powers. He's just finding out how his parents died and like all this stuff. He's still young. He's a youngin', okay? And then Godzilla is the same. He hasn't gotten his full powers yet. He hasn't fully evolved to his like final form. We have some time at growth here. Who do we think wins?
Well, from a size perspective, I mean, that has to be Godzilla, just because in this universe, in the 1970s, King Kong is 104 feet tall, and in Godzilla 2014, which takes place in modern day, he's like 350 feet tall. So from a size perspective, there's like a clear like, well, Godzilla already wins from that. But the one thing is, and I will defend Kong as much as I can, he has the agility, because Godzilla's a thick boy. He's just really big. He's really slow. But Godzilla, Kong, he could get around. He could maneuver. He can get around him. He can go up, rip a spike off. I don't know, stab him in the back, slit his throat or something. I don't know. I'm just saying he's got some options because he's smaller and he's more agile. So, well, I do think that realistically, Godzilla will probably win. Kong has a chance there. He has a chance, and I want to see that fight specifically.
That genre, that generational fight.
I want them to do a time travel story.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Okay, you go ahead.
I'm gonna have to say I think Kong wins, but that's probably because I think agility and I just think Godzilla is super slow in this iteration. To me, it's infuriating to watch in that first 2014 film how slow he is. And I just think King Kong could swing around some buildings and trip him, and then like
an
neck
AT-AT,
hold him.
yeah.
I mean, like, it just I feel like he could get around it. He'd find a way. Yeah.
I've
got 3 points on the side of my boy Godzilla. 1, Kong's gonna have to get through those scales, which is not gonna be an easy feat. 2, laser breath. And 3, if this fight is taking place in New York, as they all do, there's a lot of water. And while Godzilla may be slow on land, he is not slow on water, and that monkey doesn't breathe underwater.
This is true.
This is true.
He does not. So you
I
just
don't
gotta get
know.
him on land.
Well, I guess
Well,
that would have to be, is it on Kong's home turf or is it on, we didn't discuss the
Yeah,
parameters beforehand,
that's
so
true.
we'll leave it up to the audience. What do you guys think? Do you think Skull Island Kong wins or 2014 Godzilla? Who wins there? We need to know. Tell us,
Yeah.
not in the comments, but I guess in the comments in YouTube if you want to.
Yeah, tweet at us.
Tweet at us. Yell at me. Yell at
Comments.
Darrell.
Yeah, send us random messages.
Yell at Sarah for not seeing Kong Island.
Find me on the street.
Huh. Alrighty, guys. We have come to the final round. Alrighty. We have the 1962 version. I wanted to say 3. The 1962 version, King Kong versus Godzilla, or the 2021 version, Godzilla versus King Kong.
Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot.
Yeah. No king in this one.
Well, it's because
that's
fighting.
the point.
Yeah. So
King of Monsters versus King Kong.
Yes.
Who is king?
The true king of all the monsters.
So do we want to talk about the 1962 version first before we get to more spoiler territory?
Yeah, let's knock that one out of the way first.
Oh my gosh.
I have thoughts about this one because I watched this all the way through, but you only saw like most of it, right, Grace?
I saw most of it. I'm not gonna lie. I got to about an hour in and then realized I had to write for the podcast. So I had to focus more on that. And then so I scrubbed through the end of it. But which it sucks because that's like the big fight part is the last 20 minutes. So I got through all the like human BS basically.
Yeah, so I don't know. King Kong versus Godzilla 1962, directed by Ishiro Honda, who also directed the original Godzilla. And this is his third time directing because this is the third Godzilla film. Yeah, it's not that great as a movie. It's
compared to the first one, which is phenomenal.
Man. Like it's not, doesn't even come close compared to the original movie.
He tried though. He does try to like make that human connection again and to tie it into, but there's too many. Yeah,
there's too much happening. There's too many plot points. Basically the idea is that Godzilla awakens again. He's like
of his iceberg,
yeah. And so I'm a little dismissive of this, as you can hear, and you can probably see on the video. So he awakens from his iceberg and like, oh my god, it's Godzilla. So what they have to do is like, how do we defeat Godzilla? I don't know. Go find a big monster. Literally, that's what they say. Go find a monster. Just any monster, if it's real or not. It's like, well, this is island. I think it's called like Faroe Island. It's not called Skull Island in this movie.
I read it. It was like, it's like Faroe, but it's like, Faroe Island or something like that.
Yeah, but so maybe it's Skull Island, but it's not. So they go there and they're like, oh, look at that. There's a big gorilla here. Also, I'm going to talk about my favorite plot point again, blackface. You may notice there's a theme here with the King Kong films. So this movie actually like commits the worst sin.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, but it's one of those things where I was like, oh, that makes sense, but also that's really unfortunate. So all the natives are just Japanese people in blackface, because as you can probably imagine, in Japan, the black population is not really, the biggest there. So they're just like, you know what, let's make them look kind of black. Let's give them wigs of nappy hair and stuff. And so it's like, it's kind of hilarious, honestly. It's just like, wow, it's just so stupid. And it's like, this is really racist, but also it's like, I feel like they didn't even think about it. They're just like, we don't have time for this. Just put black paint on them. I don't care. Anything. And of course, like the female savage, quote unquote, she has lighter skin because she's supposed to be attractive, and you can't be attractive if you have dark skin, according to stories
Everyone
like
in
that.
Hollywood.
Yeah, it's like still an issue we're dealing with today, but I won't digress too far.
Maybe
But
another
yes,
day we'll get into
yeah,
that
another day
topic.
we can get completely into that. I'd love to talk about that. But yeah, so that's kind of an annoying, also hilarious thing about this movie, because it's just like, wow, y'all went deep into this.
They spend a lot of time in that island too. Like there's
They
like this
do.
huge
It's like a third of the movie.
humorous scene where they're trying to communicate with the chief of the tribe, and then they like bribe him with a radio and
And
cigarettes. Oh my
cigarettes.
god, they
They
bribe
give a
him with
kid
cigarettes. They give the kids
cigarettes.
cigarettes and stuff like that. It's a lot. It
Yeah, it's a lot to handle, and
doesn't hold up. Let's just say that it doesn't hold up at
yeah,
all.
that's the bottom line for this film, is that it doesn't hold up really. Um, and I was saying earlier, one thing that does not work in this movie is that Godzilla as a monster just doesn't look awesome when there's so much light on him. Like when he's in
Yes.
color, like he and King Kong, it does not look good. It's literally just like a guy in a suit with really long arms for King Kong, unless he's fighting, which they just use normal arms on him. And Godzilla just looks like a big rubber suit, and it's one of those things where, of course, I mean, it is a big rubber suit, and there's an element of craft to it. One interesting thing is that like both of the people who were in the suits, they were like, they did judo, and so they were actually doing like real like judo moves when they were fighting. Weird when you're seeing two giant monsters fighting, admittedly, but still, like there was a craft to it. There was thought that went into it, but it doesn't look as good, and the story's not as good. It's just like, we need these two monsters to fight, make it happen.
Yeah,
Um,
I wrote in my notes because I took notes while I was watching it. I wrote, well, one, Godzilla's iceberg is like 20 feet from the land. Okay. Like we don't they like make this big deal about a helicopter going over it. And then they're like looking for it, and then there's Godzilla. They call up Godzilla. The tanks come out and start shooting. And I'm like, you're on land, he's out in the middle of the Arctic Sea or something like that. But no, he's just right there because he wanders up. And then the best part is when they speed up the little tanks going back into their little cave.
oh
You're
yeah,
like,
they're like, you gotta get out of here.
retreat. But the other thing is, I wrote 30 minutes in, no King Kong.
Oh yeah, they take a long time to get to him.
They give you an octopus.
Oh yeah, they
A
do give you an
giant
octopus to fight.
Octopus. That's what they give you at 30 minutes in. Then there's a gratuitous fight scene between the tribe and the octopus for 10 minutes until King Kong comes in to save the day. And in
Yeah.
which he has a great fight of the octopus coming onto his face, and then he's like throwing it off, and then he almost dies, and then the tribe has to sing, and the like, pretty, lady has to sing. Yeah.
And it's important because like King Kong's biggest weakness in this is two things. One is that there's like a specific berry on the island. It's like all the animals who eat it get really, really big. That's why he's so big. That's why the octopus is so big. But it also makes him really sleepy. And so if he starts to fall asleep, the villagers have to sing and chant to him.
To wake
And
him
that
up.
makes that like, yeah. Well, that can keep him asleep. And they're like, oh, good. He's cool now. He's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, so they use that. Of course, they use this plot point again later.
Well-
Chekhov is rolling in his grave, thinking about that gun that's being used again.
I was laughing. I was like, the line was like, let's build a raft. I'm like, you had time to build a raft to put King Kong on. It was just the two of you. Like, did the tribe
Yeah,
help
it's just
you?
them. It's like, we're gonna take your god. You're cool with that, right? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they take him to Japan. It's like, all right, go fight Godzilla. In the most hilarious first fight scene I've ever seen. Sarah, you would love this. Basically, you have Godzilla on a hill, so it's like, it's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. And then King Kong shows up, and basically Kong is like, here's a rock. I'm gonna throw this rock at him. And Godzilla's like, what are you doing? You're throwing rocks at me. So of course Godzilla uses his like atomic breath to just set the ground on fire. And King Kong's like, oh, oh no, I'm not doing that. He literally like looks up and looks down and he just kind of like pats himself off and he walks away. He doesn't run away, he just walks away slowly. And that's the first time he loses a fight to Godzilla, because he loses again later on. It's like he basically falls asleep when he like kidnaps a girl or something, and then he like falls asleep after the people, of course, give him like, we got the berries from the island, give him the berries. All right, sing to him, chant to him, make him fall asleep. So then they capture him and they like put him in a big like net or something and bring him closer to Godzilla again to try and defeat him again. Then Godzilla gets his ass knocked out. Godzilla basically just using his tail and just knocks him out, and it's hilarious. But then the one thing that I was so surprised by, but also they did kind of make this a thing in the first movie, was that Godzilla is like weak to electricity, apparently.
Yes.
You wouldn't guess that, seeing like, he has atomic breath and
in
stuff.
Honda's lore, that's how they beat him pretty much every time, is electricity.
It's always electricity. But Kong actually gets powered up by electricity. That's his. And so I don't know if you got to this point, Grace.
I didn't know. I didn't get to fighting.
There's a lightning storm basically, and it electrocutes King Kong, and he's like, "Oh, I'm back." And then he goes and he fights Godzilla, and they both fall into the ocean. Godzilla's never seen again. He disappears, but when they do see King Kong walking away in the ocean back to his homeland, apparently. So
interesting.
It's a trip of a movie, just because it's like, this is so weird and not good.
It's not good. I mean, it's like an hour of people talking, and I'm like, just get to the craziness. Like, I just want to like, I'm mad that I didn't get to the fight stuff. I should have just skipped it to the fight. So. Honestly,
you should have. Like, the rest of it's not worth it. Although we did get two interesting pieces of trivia. One is that this is the origin of Godzilla's iconic, like, high-pitched roar. So the version you hear in like every subsequent movie, including the new
same
ones. Yeah, it's the exact same roar. They've been using that, and I was like, oh, that's
I noticed
so cool.
That too. Like, because I was like, that's the same roar we were just listening to.
Like, he didn't have that in the first movie. The roar from this movie is a combination of the one from the first and second movies, I think. But they just keep it from now on. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Also, this is not really a fun fact. It's an annoying fact. I hate this. There's a scientist in the movie who keeps pronouncing reptile as reptile, and I don't understand why you would ever say reptile. He's an American scientist. He says reptile instead of reptile, and I hate it. Oh, also, it's all dubbed with terrible American voices too.
Oh, see, I watched the Japanese version.
Oh, you watched the Japanese?
Yeah, I watched the Japanese version. So I was like, I don't remember that.
Well, I remember that. I didn't know that you could. I was trying to see if I could change it in the DVD, in the Blu-ray menu, and I couldn't figure it out. So I found it.
I found it online. I found it on YouTube, actually.
Oh, okay. That's nice. So good for you. I watched a horrible dub of a horrible movie.
So, but no, I will have to agree with you. It's a fun watch. Just watch it, know what you're getting into, call it a day.
Yeah. Have a few drinks before you start.
Yeah, it's nothing though compared to the one we're about to talk about though.
Yeah.
We interrupt this last round for a spoiler warning. We're about to talk about spoilers for Godzilla vs. Kong, which came out in March 2021. Hit the pause button and come back when you've watched the film, because we don't want y'all mad at us for ruining your movie experience. I don't want all that bad juju. So hit pause. And we're back. If you haven't seen the movie, you have missed your opportunity. We have stopped for you, and now we are starting for everybody else who was actually going to watch this movie over the opening weekend. It actually did phenomenal for a pandemic movie.
It did.
I think it broke like a bunch of records for all films that came out in the last year. I think it made, like, for a movie that basically released mostly on HBO Max, it made a lot of money in theaters. So I don't have the final number, but I remember seeing it and being like, whoa, like that's a lot. And we all watched it at home. We decided it wasn't. Darrell and I went to a movie a week ago, but we had decided that it was just, we didn't want to risk the full theater of a opening night movie, so we decided HBO Max was the best way to go. But on that note, Godzilla versus Kong. Honestly, let's see. It was directed by Adam Wingard, who I'm a big fan of. He directed a horror film, You're Next. So I was super pumped about it because all the horror directors that I follow online were like super excited about this coming out. And honestly, it's the perfect movie for the pandemic. I feel like it brought my excitement for movies coming out because it was like a trailer that I was like super pumped about. And then I feel like it just hit at the right moment for everybody. And yeah, it felt fun. It was a fun movie. I was actually really worried that I was gonna go into this expecting another Kong Skull Island and not get that, and I was gonna get another Godzilla movie. And surprisingly, it wasn't a Godzilla movie. It was a Kong movie.
Yeah, it was really a Kong movie. It was a big it was all about him, really.
Yeah. And that's like the one thing we were talking about, the old one where it was too many people. And that's why this one did really well, is that it focused mainly on Kong's side of the story. Because like you get that something's upsetting Godzilla and Millie Bobby Brown's got to figure out why. That's all we need to know about it.
That's the whole story.
And that's the whole story that you get out of Godzilla. Like that, I really love the podcast thing because that, I really
relevant to us.
I feel that on an emotional level. Not that we're, sneaking into major corporate America to try and find things, but I had a lot of fun with that side of the story. It was light. It didn't get into the like seriousness of that the Godzilla movies tend to get into. I don't know. It was mainly a Kong. It was about Kong going through another stage of his life, I guess, in a weird way. And it's heartbreaking because they open up and it's like Kong is stuck in this like dome arena thing.
Yeah, they came and invaded the island basically, and they've captured him for the most part. So he's, first of all, he's massive now. He's like 335 feet tall, and they've captured him. And he's just like, he comes in and he's like, he grabs a tree, he rips the branches off and throws it into the sky like a javelin. You're like, oh, cool, maybe he's gonna go fishing, and then hits the ceiling. You're like, oh,
it's a very Hunger Games.
Yeah,
Hunger Games, Truman Show vibes.
Yeah. But it has a lot of actors that I feel like, yes, they're great actors, but I could care less.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, like I came here to watch Kong and Godzilla beat the crap out of each other, and surprisingly, I got that. I was really happy that I got that. Like I was surprised that it happened as quickly as we did get it. Like the first meetup is pretty quick into the movie, I think. I don't feel like it had a long build up or anything like that. Like I think it got to the point. And like for me, I was like trying to remember the lore of the Godzilla movies because I hadn't seen them in forever, and I was like trying to remember what Hollow Earth meant and like all these things. And they do a really good job recapping it for you with Alexander Skarsgård, who totally didn't even know he was in the movie.
I forgot until you mentioned him just now. He was in it. That's right.
Yeah,
he was.
I love Alexander Skarsgård, but he does not look good with a beard.
No, not at all. And so they kind of break this suspension of reality for me for a second with this talk of going into the middle of the earth, and I'm like, what are we doing? Journey to the center of the earth kind of thing? Like, is this Jules Verne? Like, what are we doing here? And it felt like two cinematic worlds were colliding, or book franchise, and it was kind of weird for me for a second. And then they brought Kong into it, and this cute little girl, and you find out her backstory, and that she comes from the tribe, and she doesn't speak, and I love like how they incorporate the sign language into it. I just think it's lovely, and it's refreshing to see, because it felt very smooth to me. That's my opinion of it. But yeah, I just, it was a Kong story, and I got to follow Kong throughout as a protagonist, and we go all over the place. We go to Antarctica, we go through the earth, and we get to Hong Kong. Is that it?
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you do.
It's like you go all over the place, and I remember like watching it. I'm like, how does he get to the final battle? Like, we're in the middle. We've taken the whole movie to get to the middle of the earth. Now what? And then Godzilla like spits into the ground and creates this giant tunnel, and you're like, oh. And
it's like convenient. Yes.
Yeah. It was a really nice plot device that they also had like a ship that could fly back and forth.
Yes. Now we have hovercrafts.
Yeah, hovercrafts, and it was an interesting. Also, Isa Gonzalez is in this, who was in Baby Driver. I love her. Like, as
she's
soon
also
as
in I Care a Lot.
Oh yes. I haven't seen that one yet, but I think like I saw her in the trailers. But I love her in pretty much. I love her in Baby Driver. I think she's great in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came for a fight, and I got fights. And that's what I wanted. And they were good. Like, it felt like
they were very entertaining.
I really love that boat fight. Like, that was intense.
Yeah.
And like the way Kong just like lays down on it, like, oh my god, at the end, like there was
like he actually
a lot.
fear for his life.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And I was like, he needs to breathe. Like, I mean, Team Godzilla, but I was worried for Kong there.
It was stressful, and it felt like I had something like worth to lose. Like, I had emotional investment in these characters, but it was weird because you don't really get Godzilla's side of it until the very end, where you like everything comes together. And but Kong's story about like finding where he comes from is almost heart-wrenching. It's a very like like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and he gets to sit on his throne for
gets
like
to
2
reclaim
seconds.
his crown.
2 seconds, and then it's done, and he's gone, and he has to go and fight. And like, it's so funny, like the score, they're like, oh, 1 for Godzilla, okay, now they're even 1-on-1, and then you get to the next one, and it felt like watching like a MMA fight, or like one of those like WWE fight kind of things. And like, it felt like super like punch slap. Like, I love when Godzilla smacks him. It's just so funny. But it felt like he knew what he was giving us. We wanted to see 2 monsters fight, and we got 2 monsters plus some. So like, major spoiler warning.
Yeah.
If you've listened up to this point and you're like, okay, I really want to see this movie, go see it now before you continue with the rest of this podcast. Please. I do not want to ruin this for you, because I was so excited when this reveal happened, and apparently the other 2 were not, because they knew it was going to happen, and I didn't. I don't know.
I assumed.
Yeah, it was an assumption. But this is your second and final warning.
Yes.
Go watch it and then come back.
Yes. So, it ends up that the big, real baddie of the whole story is corporate America.
The end.
The end. No, they're building a mecha Godzilla, which is so exciting, because we're like, yes, we get mecha Godzilla. And I remember like Darrell was like making fun of me, because I was like, no way, we're getting mecha Godzilla. I was just like so pumped because I had no expectations. I just wanted to watch King Kong and Godzilla fight. That's all I wanted. And I got Mecha Godzilla out of it. And I was like, this is more than I ever wanted. And I'm so happy. And the like, I like that you brought up that like lightning powers King Kong because they reference that
they reference that.
but in a weird way. They're like, oh, let's restart his heart.
Yeah,
You know,
let's not
with
make
this-
it stupid.
Yes.
Let's just use a defibrillator and electrocute him. There you go. He's back to life. He comes back and
Yeah.
he's like, cool. Now I can beat up Mecha Godzilla with my giant axe that I have.
Oh,
That's made out of a Godzilla scale, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
right?
it's so
and it's
cool.
like it gets like supercharged by like
Uh-huh.
Godzilla's
That
atomic
was
breath.
it was just a fun fight, and it felt
Mhm.
like I was watching something that I could shout at the screen for and like root and holler and like, yeah, hit him, like take him down. And it that's all I wanted out of it. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted. That's what I got. This one wins. No, like I'm not even. I don't know about you guys, but no
Yeah.
question for me. These guys win
Yeah.
all day, every day. And
Now,
I
don't
like.
forget that octopus fight in the original. Like that octopus fight where they basically wrap some like saran wrap around them to make it look like there's like goo on them. But you telling me that's not better than Godzilla wielding a giant axe and just like going at it on like Godzilla?
It was so good. I
Oh.
loved it. I loved everything about that. I felt like I got to laugh at the human stuff. There was some human stuff that was funny. I got to feel sad at the right spots. And I mean, like I followed Kong through his life journey. He's got to accept that he's not king of everything, like that kind of thing. And I love that in its own weird way. And I also love that, like, Godzilla gets humbled, like it's
Mhm.
not always about him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think it was a great addition to the Monsterverse. I think that's what they're calling it now.
Mm.
I don't know if this means they're gonna do more. I mean, they left it open to do more in a weird
Mhm.
way. I think that they probably would explore Godzilla with other monsters. I don't foresee them doing another Kong because I feel like that was a good end for Kong.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
he
it's
ends
kinda hard
up
to do anything else really with
yeah, because he's
him.
in the middle of the earth and
Yeah.
swinging around there. And I love that the humans inhabited the hollow earth and they immediately became scientists there. And I'm like, typical.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a definite recommend, and I think if you can go see it in theaters, I definitely recommend seeing it in theaters.
It's a
I
big
wish
movie.
I
Big
wish I'd have
movie, big
seen it in
screen.
theaters, and
Yeah.
maybe eventually I will go see it. I just wasn't there yet for an opening night movie theater. I didn't know what to expect, and Darrell and I went to 10 Commandments a week ago for I think the 65th anniversary or
Yeah.
something like that.
So you
Totally
can
not
imagine
the
the house
same movie,
there. It was
but it was empty. There was
Yeah.
no one there. So, and we knew it was going to be empty.
exactly. So nice experience.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get into Charles the Test on another date. So.
Yeah. We'll talk about Planet of the Apes someday.
Ben-Hur. I'm still determined to get you to watch Ben-Hur with me.
All
So.
right.
But that concludes our exploration of the God fascination and Titan fascination of the humans, starting with King Kong in 1933 and ending in 2021 with Godzilla versus Kong. I think we've hit a really nice journey, a nice arc of some bad movies and some good ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that all we got for today?
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to add though that in the Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla did reign supreme. So the right big monster won in the end.
No, I just think that Kong was tired and he was ready to just bow out. He's been winning the entire
Kong
time.
saved his life, although
Kong-
it was because they poured bourbon onto a machine console, and Mechagodzilla was like, oh, I don't know what to do now. But still, yeah, I don't
Kong
know.
won all the other fights though, so I feel like we can give Godzilla this one.
Yeah, he is the biggest and the baddest. But
Yes.
but now he knows that Kong is like, you're okay, man.
Yeah, you're
We'll-
okay.
I'll leave you
Yeah.
alone for now.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, don't come near me.
Don't come to
again,
my
though.
island. Err.
If Kong is humanity, then Godzilla is the force of nature. So
There
Yeah,
you go.
exactly.
Ooh, nice. Very,
Yeah,
very
that's
nice.
the reason why Kong is is so likable. It's like he
Mhm.
just has an element of humanity. He can emote,
Yeah.
unlike
Yeah.
Godzilla, which legally
Ooh.
is not allowed to emote.
Yes,
Mhm.
he's not allowed to emote, and so
Yeah.
apparently people got mad about this one shot where Godzilla looks happy that he like landed a blow or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a
in the
little
movie.
tiny smile.
It's so little. Oh, like I caught it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's it. That because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost like a snicker. Like it's like a and I remember I was like reading like this full-fledged article about this one shot about Godzilla emoting just a little bit. And I was like, man, like I never really thought about the fact that Godzilla doesn't emote.
Yeah,
Like,
he's not
Yeah.
there for that. He's there. He's an equalizer. You know.
Exactly. So show up, do a job, and leave. That's his
Yep.
whole thing. Showing you your place, and I'm gonna go.
Yes. Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for this week. I know we wanted to talk about some movie news, but think we've covered a lot today. So maybe next week we'll do a little bit of a bigger news segment. My name is Gracie, and you can find me at Gracie May with a Y and 3 E's on anywhere you see fit. Darrell, where can we find you?
You can find me at Darth Darrell on Twitter. That's Darth as in Vader or Maul or whoever you want. And Darrell, that's Darrell.
2 R's and 2 L's. And Sarah, what about you?
I am snotty.person on Instagram and snotty_person on Twitter. And both of those are with an IE, not a Y for snotty.
And you want to check us out for all the latest movie news at the Popcorn Bucket List on Instagram and TPB_podcast on Twitter, or you can just find us on whatever social media you use and tune in to our YouTube channel if you want to see our beautiful faces. We'll be uploading the video version of the podcast on Fridays after this episode premieres. So yeah, check us out. I actually, we promoted a local artist, not a local artist, but an artist that I follow on Twitter who did some really cool renderings of Godzilla tonight. So check him out. Scary Stormy is wonderful, and I love his horror renditions. I actually have his Frankenstein somewhere. I was trying to find it so I could hang it up in the background, but I couldn't find it, so I moved. So sorry, Scary Stormy. But y'all have a good one and stay safe out there. Hopefully this pandemic isn't too much longer, and so we can start going to movies without feeling too panicky. Haha, you see what I did there? Panicky about the pandemic.
Nice, very nice.
Been cooking
Now we
that
can
one
all
up for a
leave.
whole year. All right, guys. Well, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Yeah, let us know what you thought
Bye.
of Kong or Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Yes,
Tell us which
let
one
us
you like the
know.
most.
Who won? We want to know.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.